Today we're going over the electromagnetic spectrum, or the EM spectrum. So these will be doodle notes. These will be what the notes look like, and we're going to fill them in. So a wavelength is the distance from one point on a wave to the next identical position. So the wavelength can be from crest to crest, middle to middle, here to here. As long as it is exactly the identical point, that is your wavelength. Right? The crest, so where these smiley faces are, is the highest position on a wave. So it's just basically the top of the hills are your crest. And then a trough is the lowest position on the wave. So where the smiley face is down here, that is a trough. If you know anything about animals or what they drink out of, troughs are like the bottom of the buckets. All right, frequency is the number of times something occurs in a specific amount of time. The longer or the more space in between each wavelength, there is less energy. And then the shorter or the smaller spaces between the wavelength is more energy. So right here, ultraviolet, the wavelengths are further apart, so they're greater. So there's less energy in this one area right here. Now the gamma rays, there is less space in between each wave, which means there's more energy. So the boxes are the same size, but this one has less energy because it's farther apart, and this one has more energy because it's closer together. All right. The electromagnetic waves transfer energy from one place to another. The electromagnetic spectrum is a scale that shows the size of different waves of light. Some of these waves are visible, but most are invisible. So, as we mentioned, the closer they are together, the more energy. And as they get further apart, it's the least energy. So you can see this arrow going this direction. It is increasing energy in this direction. Now, increasing wavelength is going the size difference in between each wavelength. So, since it's getting smaller, 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 it's getting larger, larger, less energy, greater wavelength. All right, so this is the whole scale together. This tiny little section are the only waves we can see, and it's called visible light, and this is where we get our colors. All right, gamma rays, so they're the ones that are closer together because they have more energy. They are produced by radioactive elements. These cannot be seen or felt, but can cause cancer. They are also used to treat cancer. So gamma rays can actually harm your healthy cells. But once you have cancer, gamma rays can actually go in and destroy those dangerous cells. So it's like a double-edged sword. Now X-rays, which have a little less energy than gamma rays, are used to make images of the body. X-rays pass easily through skin, tissue, but not as easily through bones. So on X-rays, this is why you can see the bones a lot more clearly than the skin around it or the muscles around it, because bones are more dense, so they're harder to go through. Ultraviolet. So ultraviolet rays or UV rays are naturally found in sunlight. Ultraviolet rays can cause sunburn and cancer. So you can get skin cancer from being out in UV rays too long. Sunblock products protect against UV rays, so the higher the SPF, the more protected you are. And a lot of sunglasses now have UV ray protection, so they filter out those rays going towards your eyes. And UV rays are also used to sanitize things, so they kill bacteria as well. Visible light. So visible light is the wavelength that our eyes can see. So red is the longest, so it has the least energy. And then violet is the shortest, so it has a little bit more energy in visible, but and it's also closer to the ultraviolet side. So that is one way you can figure out where it is. So ultraviolet, bright violet will be on the ultraviolet side with more energy, and then infrared will have the red side where there's least energy. So microwaves and many types of, or they're used in many types of communication. They're used in signals such as Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and microwave ovens. So these, when you're out of the visible light, you cannot see them anymore. Now, radio waves are the longest wavelength on the spectrum, which means they have the least amount of energy because their wavelength is so long. They are used to transmit radio, cell phones, and TV signals around the Earth. All right, so which of these is correct? Shorter wavelengths over here, longer wavelengths. This one is shorter wavelengths over here, or longer wavelengths, shorter wavelengths. And the truth is, both of these are correct because the spectrum can be read in any direction. You just need to be careful on what side has the short wavelengths or the most energy, and what side has the longer wavelengths or the least energy. So you just need to know the names in the different sections and what their frequency are like. So the names and the frequencies are always going to match, no matter which way it's turned. So which waves have the least energy? Radio waves. They're over here. See how it looks like it's kind of slower right here because they have the least energy. And the most energy is your gamma rays. You can see right here they're packed closer together, and it looks like there's a lot of action on this side. So which ones have the lowest frequency? So remember, frequency is how many times it occurs in a section. Radio waves. So if I were to make a line right here, that's only half of a wave. That's not that much. And then highest frequency is gamma rays because there's a lot more energy over here. If I were to put a line right here, you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 6 waves going on in the same area as half a wave for radio. And then which color of the visible light has the most energy? Remember, ultraviolet is closest to the violet. So that one has the most energy compared to where the red would be. And then which color of visible light has the least energy? That would be the red side. Right. So what is the relationship between wavelength and frequency? As the wavelength increases, frequency decreases. So remember, wavelength is the space between each wave. And so as that space gets bigger, the frequency or energy gets less. And then as wavelength decreases, as the waves become closer together, the frequency increases, which means that it has a lot more energy.